Hey, ho, Hockey World. Today we have Mike up in Toronto for the Toronto Philadelphia Flyers game later today, later tonight, I guess. And Russ, of course, in his lovely South Jersey home. And I'm up here in North Wales, Pennsylvania. So what's going on, guys? What's going on, Russ?
Well, right now we're all dealing with some lousy weather, and I'm sure the people who have gotten snow recently are not happy.
Mother effers.
I mean, the weather actually seems to be a huge topic, but other than that, the NBA playoffs are going on, and we're and Eck, you'll be happy to know the 76ers are up 2-0.
I watched a little bit last night.
I recently did get an NBA sponsor, so I had to write about that series and picked the Sixers in 7. But the interesting part about that series now is a player, Thibault, won't be able to go to Toronto and play because he's not vaccinated. So games 3 and 4, they're going to be without one of their best defensive players. And so it would be interesting, Mike, to see if Toronto can get back into that series as a result.
Yeah, but they're without, and I only know this because listening to the radio broadcast as I was driving up to Toronto. Toronto is without Scotty Barnes, one of their good young players, and I don't know if they're going to get him back. And plus, there's somebody else who is playing for them right now who is clearly playing injured because he's got, he's like a 15, 16 point a night guy and he's got 0 points. So, the funny thing was, and I saw them set the stage up last Thursday when I was up in Toronto. They, for the first time since the pandemic, they did the, Jurassic Park for the Raptors, like the Maple Leaf Square. And when the Leafs are in the playoffs, they'll be doing the Maple Leaf Square thing. So, that's in a way a sign that things are, I hate to say it, but getting back to normal. But
if they are getting back to normal, like, why can't Thibault play, right? I mean, this is a weird.
Well, yeah, that's and that's that's the thing I almost think the Canadian government is doing it on purpose because they want to support their sports team. So, like, when Aaron Judge comes to Toronto at the beginning of next month and the Red Sox are coming to Toronto, I think they're here now, then all the unvaccinated players can't play in Canada. I just think it's horse crap. It's like, let's, maybe, you're in a situation where these players should be vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. You're vaccinated. Everybody's vaccinated.
I got my 4th. I got my 2nd boost.
So, I get it, but it's like being vaccinated or unvaccinated, in a sense, it's they're rolling the dice. It's not like everybody else is going to be affected by one person being unvaccinated. This is more, I think the Canadian government being more of a hard ass and, whatever.
Here's the weird thing. In Thibault's situation, he did get vaccinated once, but of course you need at least 2 to be able to get into the country. And Eck, I will say, if you want to look at a guy and say he's sort of let his team down since he's already gotten one, This is a weird situation because of that too.
Yeah, no, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, he probably got the Johnson & Johnson and thought they're okay. We're done.
Canadian government taking a stand. I mean, for crying out loud, it's like, it is legitimately what we all have to do. We're all in this boat together. It's not.
Yeah,
and these people, you can say one person's not going to affect anything, but that's you can't really say that in this situation.
But there are people who did not get vaccinated because of pre-existing conditions, because their doctors told them that they
Pfizer, Mike, which makes it even weirder.
Yeah, that's idiotic. It's like, if you're going to take 1 dose, take 2, take 3.
People, though, Mike. These aren't those people. But I don't
know. Yeah, I get it.
But let's anyway. Ready? Here we go.
Yes.
Let me see what I'm doing here. Oh boy! All right.
Just don't press the button.
I won't press anything. Hello, Hockey World. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, not in Buffalo.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I don't know if Eck really believes it's 2022, but it says it on his phone, so he's going to go.
I don't know what year it is. I really don't. I'm Eck. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. At this time, to fill you on the comings and goings of the hockey world. And
okay, let's get it out of the way first, Eck. Let's talk about Vegas.
Yeah, last night we're gonna go right there. Let's talk about the Western race, because the Western race got really close and got closer still, as Vancouver still continues to play out of their minds. They won their 6th in a row, and looked good doing it too against the Dallas team that has been hot as well. They took that team down. Vegas, like we talked about yesterday, I had a feeling that game was going to be hard for them. The New Jersey plays a similar style to them.
You called it. No, you called that one. I will give that to you.
I mean, New Jersey takes them out, and this put pressure down on Vegas sincerely, strongly, because they had to win that game. I mean, they have some easy games left still. They still have what you would call an easy schedule. But I went through the schedule of.
I mean, Mark Stone broke his stick leaving the ice of that game. That's how frustrated he is. His first game back, and they lost, and he's sort of feeling it. And that's. Yeah. Go ahead. Read your stats first, and then we can chat about that.
No. You're right. I mean, and I'm just going to get into the. You can continue on that, because all we do.
I was just going to say we started talking about it yesterday, and of course the Eichel talk has increased today, and I just did mention it again on Sirius because, next year starts his no move, and it's $10 million for the next 4 years with a no move, and if their core starts to deteriorate. Like, that's a hell of a contract to be stuck with, even if he's a really good player, because it's going to restrict what you could do as a team. And so this year we did talk about it when they got Eichel that, hey, if they don't make the playoffs, it could be disastrous. Well, I got to tell you, this offseason could be disastrous for them if they don't make the playoffs, because they're probably going to lose Smith. They may lose Dadenoff too. And then how are you going to fill in that secondary scoring? Like, that's going to be a hard thing. And even like another defenseman, it's going to be difficult for them.
Yeah, well, they have a lot to do, a lot of work to do, and not a lot of confidence in the people doing it right now. I mean,
I mean, right now, the city of Buffalo is in a state of schadenfreude, taking pleasure in the demise of the Vegas Golden Knights, because they have a vested interest, obviously, with the first round pick, and I believe it's top 10 protected. So this year, so if they don't, if Vegas misses the playoffs and wins the lottery, it would go to Vegas, and then the following year the pick would go to Buffalo. But the whole point here is, they're as typical of being like a rejected boyfriend or girlfriend, you want the other person who rejected you to suffer. And they want,
so I'm not sure how that.
Neither have I. Every woman who's gone out with me has loved it. But let's just say this. I mean, I saw that, I think it was Mike Harrington or another Buffalo reporter who had posted that Vegas's record since the Eichel trade was a game under 500, and Buffalo's record was almost exact. And I really think that I'm not the biggest Jack Eichel fan. I'm not a fan anymore. So I'm looking at it sort of objectively. I honestly think that really you can't blame Eichel for the downfall of the Vegas Golden Knights right now, because Stone is injured. Pacioretty's been injured.
Crazy assertion.
It's not his fault, but what you could – here's the part that I think is worthy of discussion. It's not his fault. He's played as well as you could expect him to play, but – the team did have to change things to fit him in.
Yeah.
They were going to have the injuries anyhow. We don't know if guys would have come back quicker without him being there. We don't. They may have. And Eck talked about that. So, and him being there is going to affect their structure next year. So he is affecting the team, even if it's not his play, just his salary is affecting the team.
Yeah. And that again, it's not his fault. I mean,
not his fault, but it's a part and parcel of
they traded for him, knowing what his salary.
Bad planning. Like, do you think? And I asked this question on Sirius, and I don't think they have a plan. Like in business, you're supposed to plan for the best and the worst. You're supposed to, because in case that happens, they definitely have planned for the best based on their cap and everything else. Had they planned for the worst, meaning not making the playoffs, and do they have a plan for that? I don't think they do, but I'm not sure what you think.
No plan at all. I mean, and then they haven't shown any indication of having a plan in any way, shape, or form. I mean, and I do think Stone would have been back sooner, and I do think they would have made the playoffs had they not had to sit him out all that time. I think that and now bringing him back now is really feels very, very rushed, and now it feels very.
Whoa! Wait! It can't be one or the other. Either he was hurt, or Okay.
The dog's in hours. No. When I said rush, I shouldn't use that rush. I didn't mean rushing him back. I just meant, it feels very desperate. Like it feels like
Yes.
they
Okay.
reached
I
the
agree
point
with
where,
that.
and that's the word I should use better. If they reached the point where they desperately had to go back on their plan, which was to keep him out for the regular season. And because they saw that they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they still might not. So now they're in a spot, and today I tried to take a long look at the wild card and that third spot in the West, to see who was going to make it based on schedule and stuff like that, and based on just what our feelings are, and our dog's going crazy here. Sorry about that. I'm by myself today, so a little bit of craziness going around me. Hey guys, sorry, I literally have like the growling going on below me. All right, hey, come here. I'm gonna grab one of them if I can. All right, so here's the deal. The wild card spot. We're currently where we sit now. On the wild card.
Well, right now Vegas is 4 points behind both Dallas and Nashville at 91 points.
The Preds and the Stars each have 6 games to go.
Right.
91 points. The Vegas 5 games to go, with 87 points. The Canucks 6 games to go at 86 points. And then also the other team you have to factor into the wild card race is the LA Kings, because the Kings have 90 points, but only 5 games to go. So they're
that was a big. Okay, the game last night was big for LA because that was the game in hand that Vegas had.
Right.
So now now they're even in games, and they have a 3-point lead on Vegas. And like I said, the most interested party in this is the Edmonton Oilers. They got their pom-poms out, they're burning the incense, they're chanting right now, praying the LA Kings without Drew Doughty get in, and that Vegas is eliminated, because that would I think Vegas would beat Edmonton. I don't think there's a chance that LA beats Edmonton.
The only thing is, I'll say this: I think these games against the Ducks are dangerous for the Kings.
They're really dangerous for the Kings.
Yeah.
When I looked at this and I went through the whole thing, real quick, the Kings are in Anaheim tonight, host Chicago on Thursday, and Anaheim on Saturday, and they end on the road in Seattle and Vancouver, which is that possibly big game for them at the end of the year. Right. The Knights host Washington tomorrow night, and then host San Jose on Sunday, before ending on the road next week with 3 games in 4 nights against Dallas, Chicago, and St. Louis. So that's and then the Canucks host Ottawa tonight, which is the Canucks have a history, right? They're winning big games like last night and then losing to a bad team.
They do.
So this Ottawa game tonight is a real.
They're probably not going to play Demko back to back, right?
This is a real trap game. The Canucks have to win tonight. Then they go to Minnesota and Calgary on Thursday and Saturday, and they end with 3 games in 4 nights next week with Seattle, LA, before ending in Edmonton next Friday. So the LA game, even though it's the last game, it feels like the finale for the Kings. It's not the finale for the Canucks. They have one more game after that.
I'll say this about Seattle. Just having Beniers there, because they've been lacking offense all year, he has been instant offense for them. So these games against Seattle now are no gimmies.
Right. Seattle's starting to win some games. And then when you look at like I've said before, to me, this team is still you still have to worry about is the Predators, who have 5, now they are, everybody seems to think they're in the playoffs, but
you're correct in pointing out, if they were to lose these next 5,
or even 3 of the next 5. They host Calgary tonight. They go to Tampa on Saturday. They host Minnesota Sunday. Next week, they host Calgary again, and they finish off with Colorado and Arizona. That's you're talking about 6.
They could go 1-5.
6 games against 5 playoff teams, right? And
yeah,
so
but
I worked this all out of my head. I just played through all these things. I'm just predicting what would happen.
But let's just say this before what you're going to say. Calgary is home and cooled out. They are locked in first place. They're going to rest players. So is Colorado. These teams are going to, Colorado probably play Pavel Francouz a lot. They'll probably play some of their injured, or rest some of their just returned guys from injury.
Right.
That could rest McKinnon. So it's not like they're playing Calgary in the middle of March. It's they're playing Calgary as they're playing out the string.
I watch the Preds almost every game. They're one of my teams I watch almost every game. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter if they were playing anybody right now. Like they just aren't together as a team. They aren't playing the way they need to play hockey right now. And I don't think like, they can't look at those games like they're going to win them. I mean, this is a team that is not, they're losing games on their own right now. And I mean, when I play it all out, and it's kind of a weird thing to say, but this is how I sort of came out with it was Vancouver getting that third spot in the West, Dallas getting the first wild card, and LA getting the second wild card. And it's kind of like, and that's sort of, and it seems like that's a strange.
If that happens, Vancouver has to win out. I don't think they can do it any other way.
They'd have to go 6-0.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't have to go 6-0. They are how many points behind right now? They are.
But they're waiting on other teams to do things, so I think they really do have to go.
No, they're really only looking at LA, and LA.
They're 4 points behind LA. They're 5 points behind the 2 wild card teams.
Okay, they played the same amount of games as LA, right?
Correct.
Okay, so they're 4 points behind LA.
No. I think they played. I think they have a game in.
Right. So okay. They're only 2 points behind LA if they win that game in hand, which is tonight against Ottawa.
So we're not going to count the game in hand.
Yeah. Let's learn a lesson from the New York Islanders. We cannot count games in hand as victories.
We're 4 points behind, guys. We're not talking about 25.
We're
talking about winning one game in hand.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not talking about winning 5 games in hand. I mean, the Islanders was a silly experiment.
I'm gonna have a stroke. I want to
ask you a question. I've never asked you this question. Yeah. How did you do on the math portion of the SAT?
Really good.
Okay. All right.
Really good. Yeah.
I just wanted to know.
720.
I'm gonna have a stroke.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I got on the math list. So the reality here is they are one game. If they have one game to win in hand against Ottawa, all right, let's just say that we're not talking about the Islanders having to win 5 games in hand and being 20 points behind. They're 4 points behind. If they win this one game, then they're 2 points behind, and they play LA. So they're already, if they win tonight, they're in control of their fate because they have the ROWs on LA. So to sit there and say they have to win all their games the rest of the way,
I still think they do because of craziness. You're right, and technically they don't. But if they don't, a lot of other things still have to happen.
I mean, if LA wins all their games the rest of the way, yes, they have to win all their games the rest of the way.
Well,
but
yeah, that's one factor. Right
LA is not winning games now. Period.
If Vegas wins all their games, I mean, we can make that argument for all of them.
Well, yeah, but I'm not But
Mike is not drinking.
I am not saying that Vancouver's going to win. I'm not sitting there saying Vancouver's going to win all their games. I mean, they have 6 games left. I have them going 4-2 in those games and still getting the third spot. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to imagine LA dropping 3 of 5 games. Like that's really not that hard to. We're not talking about major shifts here. Like it's like if they win 4 of 2, LA drops 3 of 5. They win. They get the spot. But and LA would still get the wild card spot. Like LA is still in a pretty strong playoff spot. But the problem here is the Predators are 1 point up on LA. Okay, right now. And that as far as the wild card goes, so if you play it out, that's where the Predators, they're in trouble. Like I really think the Predators are in trouble, and no one else seems to think that. Everybody else seems like, oh, the Predators are going to make it. The Predators are going to make it. I don't buy that.
Well, if David Poyle's watching the show like he sometimes does, you're gonna hear about it.
I'm a Preds fan. I know. I want the Predators to make the playoffs, but I'm telling you, like right now, I just don't see it. I don't see it. How about you? Yeah, so holding this dog because the other dog is just chasing her around. I don't know. I mean, anything can happen still.
It's an exciting race. I am definitely going to watch the Kings and Ducks because, again, with Zegras out there with nothing to lose, it's dangerous, man.
And the Ducks have owned the Kings recently, and the Ducks want to knock the Kings out. Like this is like the reality. So it's in Anaheim. I mean, this is a tough one for the Kings tonight. And the Ducks are playing pretty well again. I mean, they're not playing where they were playing, but they're playing pretty well. I mean, did
you watch any of the Avalanche game
last night? No, I did not.
Oh, you didn't? Why?
Why?
Yeah.
What, last night?
Yeah, last night when they played the Capitals and the Caps.
Oh yeah, no, that was
they played their best game of the year. You just conveniently missed that.
No, I give the Caps credit. I mean, the Caps that's a huge win. The Caps now have a chance at very much catching the Penguins.
I know,
and that's like the other thing that's in there too. Now they sit 1 point behind.
Do you believe any more in the Caps than you did 3 weeks ago when you thought they were going to be out of it?
When you thought that the Islanders were going to catch them?
No, I do believe in the Caps. Yeah, I mean they've
Okay.
I do.
All
I
right.
mean, listen, I mean they've been very good for the last like 10 games. No questions
They
asked.
have.
Really
They
good.
have.
Well,
I
what we talked about yesterday. Now, I still have not heard any update on Jari, but we got the report yesterday that Freddie Anderson is out essentially the rest of the regular season. That they're going to review they're going to readdress his injury in a week.
They said the MRI was good. Did you hear that comment?
They said the MRI was negative, but he's
No,
still
I
in.
heard good. Which
Yeah,
is like,
but he
like what is that? What does good mean? Like in an MRI?
It doesn't mean anything.
Your
right.
doctor
It
said
doesn't.
your MRI is good.
Yeah, it means that they don't see any tear in ligaments or any kind of any kind of damage. But the problem is he's still in pain apparently from whatever the injury is, and so I mean it really in a sense is meaningless in the sense that okay, we're going to address this in a week. We're going to look at everything and we're going to see what it's like in a week. Okay, is anything that's of a serious nature going to be better in a week? Not a friggin' chance.
Yeah, I mean, if your MRI looks good, you still have a limb attached. But
Yeah, right.
again, this is the crazy thing about Carolina. Once again, they have the best defense in the league. Once again, we could point to, and I think the Jordan Stahl thing, even if he's just banged up, does hurt him a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But once again, we're still talking about their goaltending. And so we always seem to find one or two warts before they enter the playoffs. And for some reason, they always exit the playoffs one of the best teams in the league. And they're heading down that path again.
Yeah. And this time, there is no Alex Nedeljkovic to save their ass.
Right.
Now it's an injury-prone Antti Ranta, who's not a bad goaltender, but he's not a starter. Not a bad goal. He has played well in the past in Chicago. He played well in the past with the Rangers. He played well in the past with Arizona, and he's been okay as a backup to Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson has played the majority of the games there, and they were depending on him to not be playoff ready. And now you have an open excuse here, Russ, in the fact that now if Freddie is not playoff, if he does his usual act in the playoffs, the excuse is, well, he was hurt. Well, that doesn't help Carolina.
My memory of Antti Ranta, my favorite, I think Russ, you were there for this too, was when he was with the Rangers in the playoffs. Remember this whole thing that was going on? He was like he got off. He was a third string goalie for the Rangers in the playoffs. So he's sitting up in the press box, and the World Championships were in Finland, and he really wanted to play in the World Championship.
Yeah.
He's sitting there as a third stringer and in the press box throughout the playoffs, just pissed off about everything, like all the time. Yeah. Everybody just because he's a competitor, just like sitting there doing nothing while he could play on the World Championship team for Finland was more exciting than being the third string in the Stanley Cup Finals. Which I can understand.
Oh, he is that way though.
He's incredibly competitive, and that's the one. I think that's to his advantage. I mean, I think that he'll see this as that opportunity because he has been shunned at the last second before in different situations, and I think that he could jump up and be something. Like he could actually.
I mean, look, maybe, but I mean, again, it still looks like a weakness to me. And with everything that goes right for that team. Yeah. At some point, Rob Brindamore is going to start shaking his head like, what the hell do I have to do here?
Yeah. You're right. No, I think you're 100% right. And this could mean the Rangers catch the Hurricanes too, which is the other thing that goes on. So it's like it's weird how these teams could all end up playing the same teams, even though they could end up switching spots too. That's a possibility. Like right now, the Capitals could end up playing the Hurricanes, and the Rangers could play the Penguins, but the Rangers could play the Penguins as a first seed and with the Penguins as a wild card in the
right. I just want to see the Rangers Penguins matchup period.
Yeah.
Because they don't hate each other as much as some other rivals that each of them have regular season, but when they meet in the playoffs, they have enough history.
Has some good playoff games.
That they hate each other pretty much out of the gate. You can mention Adam Graves with the whole Mario thing.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. And
it really goes back to that year when the Penguins lost out to get a better team, and the Rangers beat them on the last couple days of the season. Remember that year?
Yes.
And the Penguins ended up winning the Stanley Cup. The Rangers get eliminated in the first round.
Yeah.
But the Rangers finished ahead of them because the Penguins just didn't even try to win games.
No, they didn't.
Down the stretch, so they could get they could end up playing the second seed or whatever it was and be a wild card team. Yeah, it's kind of
and then Lundqvist Game 7 in Pittsburgh a few years ago.
That game was amazing. Like that was both have good fan bases. Both have intense fan bases. Although I really hate the air horn. I think we've established that.
It's so annoying. Well,
iceberg is annoying, but it's okay.
The penguin banging the drum next to us, all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, remember that? That was just
the penguin mascot sitting there.
He literally would not leave our section.
We're gonna send Brian Metzer out to assassinate Iceberg. But no, this is okay. And the interesting thing is apparently the motivation, and I don't think this is a bad motivation, but the motivation for Washington in terms of is not to catch Pittsburgh, it's to avoid playing Florida in the first round. That's really what their motivation here is, to catch Boston or to catch whoever and get out of that second wild card spot, because not to say that Florida is instant death.
I don't know, they're 10-0 lately, Mike. They could be instant death.
But they do have old Sparky in Florida, so there you go.
Yeah, the thing about the Florida Panthers is they are 10-0, but they have won a lot of overtime games against bad teams. Like in that stretch,
but
they find ways to win. There's no question about it. But they can't
be we can't be these guys and say you got to go into the playoffs hot, and they're going into the playoffs hot. Like we can't ignore it.
I mean, I think the most important thing about the Panthers if the Panthers can take anything out of this is like learning to play without Ekblad is not a bad thing for them, and then and then bringing him back in, like this is like there were years when I remember the first year the Penguins won a cup in the Crosby era. Crosby was hurt for a large part of the second half of the season, and we all talked about how they learned how to play defense during that period of time. They learned how to back check. They learned how to do things that they hadn't done before that kept them from winning before, and it really did matter to them in the playoffs. They were a better team with Crosby back in there, and I think that the same could happen with Florida with Ekblad back in there because they've learned.
I agree with you. Actually, that's a really great point.
But in terms of being hot going into the playoffs, the Leafs are 9-1-1 in the last 11 games, and nobody is saying that them being hot right now means a good goddamn about anything, because right now it looks like they're going to face Tampa, the two-time Stanley Cup champions. I asked John Tavares and Sheldon Keefe today about are you looking past Philadelphia, looking at the Tampa game in terms of home ice advantage, in terms of a playoff preview, and no bulletin board material that's like basically saying the usual boilerplate of, well, we're just looking at things one game at a time. We know it's going to be tough in Florida. I find it impossible to think that they're not looking past a game against the Flyers to a game that could determine home ice advantage, and against a team that that is where they are in terms of Tampa Bay. And I mean, to me, the Leafs are going to, they may have home ice advantage. They have the worst first round matchup of any team in the Stanley Cup playoffs coming up. Nobody wants to play Tampa Bay. I don't care if they struggled. That's a team that has so much talent they can turn it on like that. And that's a team that you don't want to face. But right now, that's the task that is ahead of the Leafs.
When I look at teams I want to play in the playoffs, I always don't want to play good goalies. You know what I mean? Like I really like that's, and Vasilevsky's probably the best. So that's why I agree with you. I mean, it's like the reality of Vasilevsky or Shesterkin. I mean, with Washington, Florida versus the Rangers, if it turns out to be that top battle, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure who I'd rather play. Like honestly, because I mean, Shesterkin could get hot enough to beat you in a series, and I'm not sure Bobrovsky could do that right now. It's possible, but I think that's a tough call on who I'd rather play. I've been very high on the Rangers all year. You guys know this. I picked the Rangers to win. But if I'm Washington, do I want to face Shesterkin or Bobrovsky in the first round? That's not an easy call. But then again, to me, and what you're saying, Mike, I agree with you that when you say Toronto having to face Vasilevsky, that's super hard. I mean, when you have to face a really good goalie in the first round of playoffs, that's trouble. It's just
and I was talking this over with another reporter. I was saying, well, the only thing you could say is positive is the Leafs haven't exactly succeeded at being the favorite the last 2 years. When they played Columbus, when they played Montreal, they were the overwhelming favorite. And in spite of the fact that they could or likely will have home ice advantage since they're 6 points ahead of Tampa right now, they're going to be the underdog. Tampa will be the favorite because they've won the Cup twice in a row, and they're a great team, and they're relatively healthy going into the playoffs. They're going to be the favorite, even though but Toronto has the home ice advantage. But there's a reason. It's because they're the best team in the league, or one of the best teams in the league.
So all right. So Mike, you're gonna maybe be surprised at this, but Mick Kern and I were talking about this on Sirius, and I said if no further injuries to either one of these teams, we both agreed we're both taking the Leafs over Tampa. I am.
You're cursing them. There you go.
I'm not cursing them. I'm taking them because this is not the same Tampa team. It is not the same.
Russ and Nick Kern don't have a lot of power in this.
I don't listen. We do.
In the hockey gods world. Come on now. I mean, the reality is, like, listen, I don't know that it's better to have home ice advantage for Toronto. Like, if I'm Maple Leafs after what happened last year in the playoffs, I might want to start on the road. Like, I'm not thinking that that's the worst.
I still think it's better to be at home. I get what you're saying, but
Russ is putting the Malokia.
I am not putting the Malokia. This is how I feel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anything.
And this is the other thing, and this can't be ignored. I saw an injured Ryan McDonough playing for the Rangers multiple times, and what that means to the team if he's not 100%, and that means the same thing to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah,
he's not going to be 100% for them.
Yeah,
no, but
he's one of their maybe most important players. Like
he is.
I mean, yeah, and they don't have as much depth on the blue line as they did last year because David Savard was on the bottom pairing. He's been replaced by Zach Bogosian, and Cal Foote is on the bottom pairing. He doesn't have a lot of experience. I get that, but I think they replaced the guys on the third line. Maybe they're not as good. I mean, Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel are not as good as Yanni Gord and Tyler Johnson and Coleman. But I still think the top end of that team are still fantastic, and if they perform, then you're going to have to hope that Matthews and Marner and Tavares step up. If they do, then it's going to be a really close series.
I think the Leafs penalty kill is improved with Giordano. I think they'll be improved in general with Giordano. They're not going to be hoping just Muzzin is their only savior on defense now. Now they have somebody else. They do have a bunch of secondary scoring that I think could still come through in the playoffs. Look, Tampa's first couple of lines are killers, but it's not like their third and fourth lines are amazing anymore. They're not, and their bottom pairing's not great. So I'm not saying they're going to just roll over, but I'm saying I can see the Leafs winning in a long series. I can.
Well, when Corey Perry takes out Tavares, I'm just kidding, sir.
No, but think about this, and I said this, and Mike, and I believe it. Leafs fans, no matter the matchup, would say it's a bad matchup. Like, no matter who it is, they would say, "Oh, that's true."
No. Okay.
Yes,
I will tell you. Okay, I will tell. And I said this to you a couple weeks ago. Leaf fans were rooting, and this is the reason why it didn't happen. They were rooting for a Boston series. They were rooting for the Bruins for one simple reason: it would be a psychic flushing if they could finally beat that team. But if the Bruins beat them, then you'd have the entire GTA searching for nitroglycerin pills and in a state of PTSD. Now, I think they would beat the Bruins. I don't think they'll beat Tampa Bay. And I mean, you could look at it that, okay, they're the favorites if they're playing the Bruins, and that's an uncomfortable place for the Leafs to be. And maybe they succeed where they've failed in the past as the underdog. But I'm sorry, I'd rather face the Bruins than Tampa Bay.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that was the line, but like a week before that, everyone was there. Oh, they're gonna hit the Bruins again. They're gonna get screwed again. They're gonna get screwed again. It was absolutely. I mean, and I heard it on XM all over the place. Like they're like the Leaf fans don't want to play the Bruins. They don't want to play the Bruins. They don't play the Bruins. I mean, it's easy to sit there. It's like it's easy to sit there and say now.
It doesn't matter. You could put in Team X, and right now Leaf fans would be like, we can't beat them.
I think any team they could have faced, they wouldn't have wanted to face. But I do think they would rather be a wild card team facing perhaps the other division. I mean, that's something
that's not going to happen. No,
that's like that. The reality is that the best thing for them if they want to really get into a situation like if they had played, I think it would have been fun to see them play Carolina against Anderson, or it would have been fun to see them, play against Pittsburgh.
No, okay. There's where Russ is right, because there were some Leaf fans who said, well, we want to play Carolina. But then the problem is that all of a sudden Freddie Anderson would become Terry Sawchuk and beat them. You know, their justification of wanting to play Carolina is because, oh, well, we've seen playoff ready, and playoff ready sucks, so that's who we want to play. But that doesn't mean that against Toronto he's going to suck.
It's a good thing the past doesn't affect them. You know, like it's a good thing that they're not affected negatively by what's happened in the
those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
I just got a text from Matt Sundin. He's taking Tampa, just so you know.
But in the NHL, like these players, most of these players haven't been around for most of those teams. I mean, we talked about this. It's like
Russ,
what keeps stuff alive is you and the media and people and people around. Like they keep this alive because the players they don't think this way. And
Russ has Matt's waived his no trade clause yet? Because if he hasn't, tell him to go F himself.
I mean, listen. Carlton the Bear is being celebrated. You don't know how to even feel good about your team. Like nobody does there.
This is equal time. It's dog equal time for acting.
Nobody in Toronto knows how to feel good about their team. It's almost like they're not allowed to feel like they can win.
Russ, that's because they haven't won in 18 years. They don't know what it's like for their team to friggin' win. That's the reason why.
18 years old, sure, but the other ones do.
Hey, great. Wait, I can remember when Brian Leach and Joe Nieuwendyk won playoff series for them. Those guys have been in the Hall of Fame for over 10 years.
Yeah, no, I mean they have been, and it's a long time ago. But I mean, the reality is, this is like I don't know. I think I do think when you look at the best playoff series that are going to exist, one of them is going to be this series. Like Tampa Toronto is going to be a really good playoff series, and and all the 2-3s tend to have that, except maybe the Edmonton one won't because they're going to be.
Listen, I think if the Leafs are smart, when the Raptors are eliminated, they keep the dinosaurs in Maple Leaf Square because they have some dinosaurs playing on the fourth line anyhow. They could be kissing it.
Jesus.
Yeah, are you gonna be good? You're gonna be good. I'm gonna put you down. You're not gonna fight.
Like, I don't know, Mike. We're not allowed to say anything good about the team. Like, that's really what it's come down to.
You see, Buzz did the right thing. Yawned.
This is Stella. Yes.
Oh, it's Stella. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. All right, so I think Minnesota. I mean, and like we talked about, Minnesota, St. Louis is going to be a hell of a series.
Well, Minnesota game tonight will be interesting against the Canadiens with Carey Price in net. Like, this is a massive test for Carey Price.
Yeah, this is the big one. I mean, and he's shown bits of time.
Like, he had 2 good periods last time, and then third period he didn't look good.
Yeah, like all over Just he had all kinds of trouble. I got to stop this. I'm sorry. I apologize, guys.
That's right. But I just think this
is crazy.
This is a big matchup. Like, Carey Price, if he wants to see where he is going to go up against a team that is tough on goalies. They're good around the net. They create screens. Like, this is a big matchup for him. If he comes through this, there's no doubt in my mind he's coming back next year. But if he gets tanked, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll be honest.
Hell, he could be sort of doing a tryout for the Minnesota Wild because remember Fleury's a UFA and I believe Talbot is a UFA. No, he has 1 year left. Okay, so but he's backup material in my estimation. So but yeah, no, I do think that I still have not figured out, because I've heard so many opinions going one way or the other, whether Price playing right now is a signal that he wants to continue to play, or this is his last hurrah before he decides to retire. And I know that what Kevin said yesterday, he's not going to give up the money. Well, I'm not saying he's going to give up the money, because if he says I can't play anymore, because Shea Weber, then he gets the money and his rights get traded somewhere for the $10.5 million coupon.
Right.
Well, Karen's in our chat room. Karen, maybe you can help us out with this one.
No, it's a tough one. I mean, I don't think anybody really knows the answer. And my sense is if he has another 2 good periods and then has a bad third, I would blame that on conditioning and say, all right, you know what? He probably can do it because, again, he didn't have any training camp. He's coming in cold. So, that's what I would look at.
Right. So Karen says Price says he intends to play the remainder of his contract.
But they have to say that.
They do. But I kind of buy it with him. Like, I kind of believe it with him. I do. I mean, it's just, I think that,
And Shea Weber was going to come back.
No, but I think that, I mean, I think that what will happen is he will eventually be moved out of there. Like he's got to be moved out of Montreal. If he wants to play the remainder of his contract, it won't be in Montreal. I mean, I think that's safe to say. Like I think that there's somebody out there who would take a shot at him too. Like I really do.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado is a great, like you said, a great.
Yeah, I mean, I get what Corinne's saying too, that he doesn't want to be a burden, and I think there's something to that. But again, there really are no expectations for the Canadians next year, so it's really going to be hard for Carey Price to be a burden on a team that probably has designs on drafting Connor Bedard anyhow.
Right, which is part of the reason why I think if you're going to be a bad team, you don't want Carey Price to be your goalie, and because he's going to win you enough games to keep you out of that situation.
Yeah, you want Samuel Montembeault to play 60 games if you want to get Connor Bedard.
She thinks he's going to move this offseason. I think there's a good chance of that for sure.
Yeah, I think the draft in Montreal will be a bizarre one because
I don't know. See, that's the optics of that would be horrible. I don't think they can do it then. They would have to either do it before the draft or after the draft.
After the draft.
It's the optics. That is the number one story in the draft. You don't do that.
After the draft, there will be people jumping off the upper deck of the Bell Center if he gets traded.
I mean, it would be the only thing I could think that was worse is when Quenneville left his own draft. When Keith was traded.
Yeah,
you traded Yarmulson, and then
Yarmulson. Sorry, I said Duncan Keith. Yeah, Yarmulson.
Yeah,
he just left the draft. Like he left the draft table. So imagine if Carey Price gets traded at the draft.
It depends what they get for him. Like I mean, it
won't matter.
Well, they can't trade for Vincent Lecavalier, so it's not going to work.
It depends. I mean, not Vincent Lecavalier, but it depends what they would get for him. I really think that I don't know. I don't think it happens in the draft either, but I think at some point, I think they might get a hell of an offer at the draft, and if Montreal's got to take that offer, if they get it, I mean, they have.
But this is the thing. I don't think. Okay, I believe he has 4 years left at $10.5 million. Basically, what they're going to get for him is a draft pick or draft picks, because the team that is taking on that burden financially is not going to give you equal value, not even close to equal value. And at most, they're going to give you.
Well, I mean, lose Mike a little bit there.
It's a great return for Carey Price. He's $10.5 million question mark.
Well, I do think a team is going to have to give you money back in a deal. Montreal's going to have to retain money for sure. So I don't think it's just draft picks. I think draft picks will definitely be involved, but I think there could be a player or two in there that is an interesting type of player that is maybe an RFA or somebody who's going to be, that Montreal still would have to sign. But
this is utter pure speculation. But okay, say Florida loses early in the playoffs. Would they do a Bobrovsky for Carey Price swap?
Be interesting. They might.
The salaries are almost equal. I think the terms are equal. I think they're both 4 years. Bobrovsky would get a fresh start, but Bobrovsky isn't
more than just Bobrovsky to get Carey Price.
Well, yes and no, and Bobrovsky's got to know.
You have to make that. If the salaries are the same, then it becomes a hockey trade. If it's a hockey trade, that's not a straight up trade.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, but plus the thing is, Bobrovsky has a no move clause, so I don't know if he agrees to leave Florida for Montreal.
Probably not. Knowing Bobrovsky as I do, he's not a guy who prefers the pressure of situations. And this, he especially, I mean, that's a little bit maybe unfair, but early in his career, he definitely didn't like the pressure of situations. But yeah, what about Edmonton? What about Colorado? I mean, there's places out there.
Well, Edmonton isn't exactly a happy-go-lucky place to go. I mean, they're really if they fall short in the playoffs, which I expect them to do, and they're going to be looking for a goaltender, and Ken Holland is going to have to get a goaltender this time around after striking out on Markstrom, after striking out on Grubauer.
Yeah. What about Vancouver? To me is an interesting spot for Price, in that if
Demko.
If Demko goes back in the deal, right? Demko goes back in the trade the other way.
But why?
They should never do that.
Right? Why would they want to do that? Demko's young and healthy.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to test Price out. Of course, you have to see how how his health is and all that stuff. You have to make sure you do your homework on it. But if he is healthy and if he's Carey Price again, Vancouver loves their hometown guys too.
Look, I can see Seattle. I mean, if you want to trade Price for Grubauer and work out the money, you could do it.
Yeah, I mean that almost happened. But they showed that Price before, so
there's no pressure there, obviously.
Yeah, I think
to me that's the best landing.
Price also has to agree to a trade, right? So he has to agree.
But I think he would. I mean, look, he went and he got to the cup and he lost, which sucks. But I do think he wants to get paid. He will be near home. I think he would live with that.
Maybe. I don't know. I think the Canucks. Yeah, as much as they like Demko, I've heard things through the grapevine that they don't love Demko, and I think that they should. But I've heard that they don't love him, and that if they had the right situation, and depending on what happens this year,
I think the goaltending situations around the league going into the offseason, and we can't think about this until we see what the results of the playoffs are. But I think they're fascinating. Okay, we can't. First of all, we can't shake the John Gibson rumors in Anaheim. They continue to just be out there. I don't agree with them trading him, but it might be a fact that they think they're a couple of 3 years away, and maybe Gibson doesn't want to hang around and lose all that time, so they have to move him. So yeah, that's one. The situation in St. Louis with either Husso being a UFA that they re-sign, or they have Binnington at $6 million for another 3 or 4 years. So that's another situation. Price is another one. With the Islanders, they're probably going to have to move Varlamov because they have Sorokin, and really you can't spend for the things that Lou Lamoriello is going to have to do with the Islanders. He can't afford $10 million in goaltenders. He probably has to move one of the goalies, probably Varlamov, and then use the cap space to make moves. So there's 4 right off the top of my head, and there are other ones out there, and there are teams out there like Edmonton, like Toronto, like Buffalo that need goaltending. So I think that's going to be the centerpiece of a lot of moves in the summer.
Yeah, and you are in an era. I mean, Montreal is another place that I could see Price going to. I was
going to say that would be a.
Sorry, I'm losing my mind. New Jersey,
Minnesota,
New Jersey. I can see Price going to New Jersey. New Jersey wants a goalie in the worst way. They also love a story. It helps New Jersey as far as the media around New York goes. If they got Price, that does give New Jersey some.
But don't you think they've had enough in terms of goaltenders, in terms of goalies that have had injury history? They had Crawford, he retired. They had Bernier, he's probably done for his career with a hip problem. Now, third time's a charm. They're going to go after Carey Price with all the problems that he's had. I don't know.
He's a little different. I mean, his problems are a little different, and it depends on it depends. I mean, there's a lot still depending on situational things like that. But
sure.
And Price again would have to agree to go where he's going to go, and would he go to New Jersey? I don't know. Like someone in Timothy in the chat room, or Corinne's in the chat room properly. The Price probably wouldn't waive his no move clause to go to New Jersey. Don't know.
If I'm a team like Buffalo or I'm a team like New Jersey, who I would say it's being kind to say they're a couple years away from being playoff teams. Right. I would go after either Gibson or go after Husso. Because Husso is, I think, 27. I don't know how much he's going to earn in free agency, but the benefit of him is you don't have to give up anything to get him. He's a UFA. Now if St. Louis signs him, then Binnington is on the trade block, and then he's got 4 years left at I think 3 or 4 years at $6 million. So that's the thing. It's like, I mean, but if I'm a team that is
yes,
because he's young enough. Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Go ahead.
I was to say those teams are far enough away that they need a younger goaltender to be able to say, that goalie's gonna be there when we're good.
Right. That's true. Although everybody in the NHL now, I think we're going to see, and I think these playoffs are going to be a real interesting testimony to this about how you need 2 goalies in the NHL right now. And I think that's something that we're gonna see a lot of. We're gonna see a lot of 2 goalies in the NHL this playoffs. A lot of teams using 2 goalies.
I think that's fair.
more than they have in the past.
But I don't know if they're going to. You're saying in the actual playoffs or
The
to
actual
get to the playoffs? Oh, I don't know about that.
I think because I do think injuries are going to happen. These players are worn down from the schedule. They are tired, and we're already seeing people breaking down more and more. Goalies breaking down more and more.
But you're not going to. Okay, you're not going to.
That other goalie, right now.
Like the Rangers are not going to have Shesterkin in game 1 and Georgiev in game 2. They're not going to do it.
No,
right.
Health is an issue, right? So the health.
Scheduling wise, you're not going to have back-to-backs.
No.
So there's not going to be a reason to play both goaltenders. I mean, I've seen in the AHL where teams are playing 2 games back-to-back, and that they'll play the one goalie the one game, the other second goalie the second game in a playoff scenario. But in the Stanley Cup playoffs, unless there's an injury, no way.
No, I agree. Unless there's an injury, but I think that my point is here, teams like Pittsburgh and Carolina already might be suffering from the fact they don't have.
Okay, on that front, I can see that happening, but I don't see it as being the norm for the league.
We have 2 teams already, and we're not even at the playoffs. 2 teams already that are in the playoffs that could have trouble for not having a big second string goalie. So I think if we, a couple other guys go down, then you're looking at suddenly a problem, a league-wide problem, because and moving forward, I think you always have to have a qualified backup. But I've been a proponent of this for years, of course. But I think the goalies will always get less on the market than you think they should. Like the goalies you're talking about, Mike, that are available out there, they'll always get less than they should.
Well, and I was a proponent before the deadline of Toronto going out and getting a goaltender, because at that point Campbell was hurt and Mrazek was the number one, and an unproven Eric Shalgren was the backup. And now 3 weeks after the fact, now Campbell's healthy, Mrazek's hurt, and Eric Shalgren's the number 2. And I know he won an SHL title last year. Maybe he's an average NHL backup, but if Jack Campbell goes down, the Leafs are toast. And that's not an attack on Eric Shalgren. I'm just saying Eric Shalgren against Tampa Bay, they're toast. So, Kevin and I have argued with you for the last couple of years. If the number 1 goalie goes down with a team, they're done. There's no point,
because teams don't go out and get goalies. I mean, that's what it is come down to. I mean, you're right, because teams used to go out and make sure they had a competent backup going into the playoffs, but they can't do it anymore because of the salary cap and different situations. So they always put it on the back burner.
There's still always those situations of the Cam Ward situation that always still exists, and there are some teams that could have that happen. Like Spencer Knight could be Cam Ward for the Florida Panthers with as good as they are. Like that situation could exist there.
And Minnesota, like we talk about that, that could always change back and forth. It's possible that, Cam Talbot comes back if Fleury's the starter in the beginning of it, Cam Talbot comes back in at some point. But the teams that can do that are few and far between. There aren't that many teams. I mean, the Rangers can do that. They have 2 good goalies. The Capitals have 2 1As, so maybe
2 1Bs.
2 1Bs maybe, and maybe we could see either one or both of them throughout the playoffs. I think if they're losing, they're gonna switch up. There's teams that will do that. There's teams that will do that if the Caps are one of them. I believe the Caps, the second Samsonov or Vanacek loses, they're gonna go the other guy. So it's going to be because that's how close they are, and that's how little they know about who they should be playing in the playoffs for that team.
All I know is I look fondly back on the 1932-33 Stanley Cup when the Rangers beat the Leafs 3-1. Those were good times.
That's a long time ago. 92 years ago.
Back then, Mike's great-great-grandfather said that was a horrible matchup for the Leafs. The Rangers had a rookie goalie and Andy Aikenhead, and there's no way they're going to win, and he was right. And I think that's why it's transferred down to Mike.
My head is aching after hearing that.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks. It is 2:00. We got to go right at 2 today, unfortunately. But remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. And enjoy the games tonight. There's some big ones coming up. And we'll be back again tomorrow to talk about what they all mean. And we'll be back with Kevin tomorrow. Talk to you then. Jeez.
Andy Aikenhead.
Everything I said was factual.
I'm not saying it wasn't.